On the morning of August 15, 1943, at precisely 0820 hours, Lieutenant Commander James Thornton stood on the deck of PT-174, a Higgins 78-foot PT boat moored at the Rendova Island forward base in the Solomon Islands, examining what would become one of the most aggressive weapon modifications in PT boat history. Positioned on wooden supports on the beach approximately 100 yards away lay the forward fuselage section of a Curtiss P-40 Warhawk fighter that had crashed during a ground attack mission 3 days earlier. The pilot had survived by parachuting, but the aircraft had cartwheeled on impact, severing the forward fuselage section just aft of the cockpit. PT-174 was a standard Higgins 78-foot PT boat, one of 205 identical vessels built by Higgins Industries in New Orleans between 1942 and 1944. Powered by 3 Packard 4M 2500 gasoline engines producing 1,500 horsepower each, the boat could achieve speeds exceeding 40 knots. Standard armament consisted of 4 21-inch Mark 8 torpedoes, 2 twin .50 caliber machine gun turrets, and 1 20mm Oerlikon cannon. The boat was fast, maneuverable, and lethal against surface targets, but faced persistent challenges in engagements against heavily armed Japanese barges and coastal vessels. By August 1943, PT boat operations in the Solomon Islands had evolved significantly from the original torpedo attack mission. Japanese forces adapting to PT boat tactics increasingly used armored steel barges for coastal supply runs. These Daihatsu-class barges featured 8mm steel plate armor and mounted Type 92 7.7mm machine guns or 20mm cannons. The barges were slow but heavily armed relative to their size, and their armor was impervious to .50 caliber fire at ranges beyond 200 yards. PT boats needed more concentrated forward firepower to engage these armored barges effectively. The twin .50 caliber turrets were excellent against unarmored targets, but lacked penetration against steel plate. The 20mm cannon was effective but slow firing and mounted aft, limiting its utility in forward engagements. Some PT boats had been modified with 37mm guns salvaged from P-39 Airacobra fighters, but these weapons were scarce and the installation process was complex. The P-40 Warhawk represented the latest variant of Curtiss's venerable fighter design. The N model featured reduced armament compared to earlier variants, 6 .50 caliber machine guns instead of the 4 guns on earlier models. All 6 guns were mounted in the wings, 3 per side, firing through the propeller arc. This concentrated firepower could deliver 4,800 rounds per minute, devastating against air and ground targets. The crashed P-40N's nose section was approximately 14 feet long, measured from the propeller spinner to the firewall separating the cockpit from the fuselage fuel tank area. The section included the complete nose cone, the propeller reduction gearbox housing, and the cockpit with its bubble canopy. Both wings were still attached, though severely damaged. Most importantly, all 6 .50 caliber guns remained in the wing roots, complete with ammunition feed systems and firing mechanisms. Lieutenant Commander Thornton examined the P-40 wreckage throughout the morning of August 15th. The nose section's condition was remarkably good considering the crash. The aluminum structure was bent but not broken. The cockpit canopy was shattered, but the framing was intact. All 6 .50 caliber guns were undamaged, 3 in each wing root, positioned close to the fuselage centerline. The wing sections beyond the gun bays were destroyed, but the critical section containing the guns was salvageable. At 10:00 p.m., Thornton convened a meeting with Lieutenant Robert Morrison, PT-174's commanding officer, and Chief Motor Machinist's mate Donald Price, the base's senior mechanic. The proposal was radical: Remove the P-40's nose section, including the wing roots with mounted guns, fabricate a mounting structure, and install the entire assembly on PT-174's bow in place of the forward .50 caliber turret. The engineering challenges were substantial, but not unprecedented. PT boats had successfully mounted various salvaged aircraft weapons, establishing that aircraft guns could function effectively on surface vessels if properly installed. The P-40 nose section presented a unique opportunity: 6 .50 caliber guns in a rigid, aerodynamically designed package that could be mounted as a complete unit rather than installing individual guns. Chief Price began feasibility analysis immediately. The P-40 nose section with attached wing root structure weighed approximately 850 pounds, including the 6 guns, ammunition feed systems, and structural components. This weight was manageable, comparable to the weight of the forward turret it would replace. The challenge was mounting the angular aircraft structure on the curved bow of a PT boat. The P-40's nose section was designed to attach to the aircraft's main fuselage bulkhead at specific mounting points. The PT boat's bow structure consisted of laminated mahogany planking over oak frames, designed to support the bow turret through a circular mounting ring. The two structures came from completely different engineering traditions with incompatible attachment interfaces. Price proposed fabricating a steel adapter structure that would mount to the PT boat's existing turret mounting ring and provide attachment points matching the P-40's fuselage mounting locations. The adapter would function as a transition piece, converting the circular mounting interface to match the rectangular cross-section of the aircraft fuselage. The P-40 nose section would be oriented with the propeller spinner pointing forward, the 6 wing-mounted guns firing straight ahead parallel to the boat's centerline. The ammunition supply system required careful planning. The P-40N carried 235 rounds per gun in the wings, totaling 1,410 rounds for all 6 guns. The ammunition was stored in boxes within the wing structure, feeding through flexible chutes to the guns. For PT boat installation, Price proposed retaining the original ammunition boxes and feed systems within the salvaged wing root structure. Reloading would require accessing the ammunition bays through removable panels on the upper wing surface. The firing mechanism required integration with PT boat electrical systems. The P-40's guns used 24-volt electrical solenoids for firing. PT boats used 32-volt electrical systems. Price designed a voltage reducer that would drop the 32-volt boat power to 24 volts for the gun solenoids. The firing control would be a simple trigger mounted near the boat's helm, allowing the coxswain to fire all 6 guns while steering the boat. Lieutenant Commander Thornton faced a command decision. The modification would require removing PT-174 from operational status for approximately 1 week. The boat would lose its forward turret temporarily, reducing defensive capability during the installation. If the modification failed structurally or proved operationally impractical, valuable time and resources would be wasted. However, if successful, PT-174 would possess forward firepower exceeding any other PT boat in the squadron. On August 15th at 1400 hours, Thornton authorized the modification. By 1600 hours, PT-174 was hauled onto a beach ramp using a mobile cradle system. The forward .50 caliber turret was removed, exposing the circular mounting ring embedded in the deck structure. Price and his team of 6 mechanics began salvaging the P-40 wreckage. The P-40 wreckage was transported to the work area on August 16th. The salvage operation required careful cutting to preserve the critical structure while removing damaged sections. Using hacksaws and cutting tools, the team separated the forward fuselage section and wing root structure from the destroyed rear fuselage and outer wing panels. The salvaged section consisted of the nose cone, propeller housing, cockpit area, and wing center section containing all 6 guns and ammunition bays. The salvaged P-40 section weighed 850 pounds as estimated. The structure was remarkably rigid despite the crash damage. The wing center section was built with heavy aluminum spars and ribs designed to handle flight loads, providing inherent structural strength. The 6 guns were intact and functional. The ammunition feed mechanisms required cleaning but were undamaged. The adapter structure fabrication began on August 17th. Price designed a framework consisting of steel channels forming a circular base matching the PT boat's turret ring, with vertical supports extending upward to a rectangular mounting platform sized to match the P-40's fuselage attachment points. The structure was fabricated from steel salvaged from damaged landing craft and destroyed vehicles. The adapter structure took 2 days to fabricate, August 17th and 18th. The completed framework weighed approximately 120 pounds and stood 18 inches tall. The circular base bolted to the existing turret mounting ring using the original bolt holes. The upper platform incorporated 4 mounting points positioned to align with the P-40's fuselage attachment fittings. Installation of the adapter structure occurred on August 19th at 0800 hours. The framework was positioned on the bow and bolted to the turret mounting ring using 24 high-strength bolts. The installation required shimming to ensure the upper platform was level when the boat was floating normally. Once properly aligned, the adapter was secured and ready to receive the P-40 nose section. The P-40 nose section required preparation before installation. The shattered cockpit canopy was removed completely, eliminating unnecessary weight and wind resistance. The cockpit interior was stripped of all flight instruments, control stick, rudder pedals, and unnecessary equipment. The propeller reduction gearbox was removed from the nose, reducing weight by approximately 80 pounds. The remaining structure consisted of the streamlined nose cone, the wing center section with 6 guns, and the cockpit frame structure. Installation of the P-40 nose section occurred on August 20th at 0900 hours. A mobile crane lifted the 770-pound assembly after removal of non-essential components and positioned it over the adapter structure. Alignment proved challenging. The nose section needed to point straight forward along the boat's centerline, and the guns needed to be level and aimed at the horizon when the boat was at rest. The alignment process required 6 hours of incremental adjustments. Price used surveying techniques borrowed from artillery, establishing a reference line along the boat's centerline and adjusting the nose section until the guns aligned with this reference. The nose section was secured to the adapter using high-strength bolts through the original aircraft fuselage mounting points. The completed installation was extraordinary in appearance. PT-174's bow now featured a sleek P-40 nose cone with the distinctive shark mouth paint scheme still visible on the cowling. The wing center section extended laterally approximately 6 feet to either side of the centerline, with 3 gun barrels protruding from each wing root. The stripped cockpit frame structure created an elevated position that could serve as a forward observation post. The boat looked aggressive and purposeful, half PT boat, half fighter aircraft. The ammunition loading system required access through panels on the upper wing surface. Price fabricated hinged covers that could be opened to access the ammunition boxes. Each ammunition box held 235 rounds in belt link configuration. Loading all 6 guns required approximately 15 minutes, slower than conventional PT boat turrets, but acceptable for weapons providing superior firepower. The electrical firing system installation occurred on August 21st. Electricians made 2nd Class Thomas Sullivan wired the voltage reducer into the boat's electrical system and ran firing circuits to all 6 gun solenoids. The firing control consisted of a trigger button mounted on the helm console. Pressing the trigger would fire all 6 guns simultaneously, delivering a devastating concentration of firepower directly ahead of the boat. Ground testing began on August 22nd with the boat still on the beach ramp. Sullivan verified electrical continuity to all 6 guns using test equipment. The guns were test cycled using dummy rounds to verify the feeding mechanisms operated correctly. All systems functioned properly. The installation was mechanically ready for live firing tests. The boat was relaunched on August 23 at 0800 hours. Initial handling tests revealed the modification's impact on performance. The 890-pound installation, nose section plus adapter, positioned forward of the boat's center of gravity, created a slight bow-down trim. This was corrected by relocating 500 pounds of ammunition stores from forward to aft storage compartments. Maximum speed decreased slightly from 42 knots to approximately 40 knots due to the additional weight and the aerodynamic drag from the wing section. Live firing tests occurred on August 24 at a designated weapons range in Blanche Channel. Targets consisting of steel drums welded together to simulate barge construction were anchored at 300, 500, and 700 yards. Lieutenant Morrison commanded PT-174 during the tests, with gunner's mate First Class Michael Walsh operating the firing control. At 1,000 hours, Morrison maneuvered PT-174 to bring the bow guns to bear on the 500-yard target. Walsh pressed the firing trigger. The result was spectacular and devastating. All 6 guns fired simultaneously with perfect synchronization. The sound was extraordinary, a continuous roar rather than distinct gunshots. The muzzle flashes from 6 guns created a brilliant display even in daylight. The target sustained massive damage. Approximately 200 rounds struck the target in a 3-second burst, a concentration of fire that shredded the steel drum assembly. Multiple drums were perforated completely. Several drums were knocked off their mountings. The destructive capability far exceeded the twin .50 caliber turret that the installation replaced. The recoil forces created noticeable but manageable effects. The boat's bow dipped slightly during firing as the recoil pushed the hull down and back. The hull vibrated noticeably from the combined recoil impulses. However, the boat remained controllable and the structural integrity was sound. No damage or loosening of mounting hardware occurred. Walsh fired additional bursts at all 3 target distances. Accuracy was excellent at 300 and 500 yards. The gun convergence pattern created a beaten zone approximately 6 feet in diameter at these ranges. At 700 yards, the pattern expanded to approximately 15 feet, but remained effective. The 6-gun installation provided concentrated firepower at ranges where conventional PT boat weapons were marginally effective. Lieutenant Commander Thornton scheduled PT-174 for combat operations on August 28, 1943. The mission involved patrolling Blackett Strait searching for Japanese barge traffic. PT-174 would operate with PT-162 and PT-169 in a 3-boat section, with PT-174 designated as the attack boat due to its enhanced firepower. The patrol departed Rendova at 2100 hours on August 28th. The section proceeded to Blackett Strait and commenced patrol at 2230 hours. At 0045 hours on August 29th, radar contact indicated surface targets at 4,000 yards. Visual confirmation identified 2 Japanese Daihatsu barges proceeding northwest at approximately 8 knots. PT-174 maneuvered to attack position, approaching the barges from the stern quarter at 30 knots. At 600 yards range, Morrison ordered firing. Walsh engaged the trailing barge with the 6-gun nose installation. The concentrated fire was immediately effective. The .50 caliber rounds penetrated the barge's 8mm steel armor at this range. The barge's engine was disabled, and the vessel began taking water from multiple hull penetrations. The lead barge attempted to maneuver and return fire with its deck-mounted 20mm cannon. PT-174 maintained position on the stern quarter where the barge's gun could not traverse effectively. Walsh continued firing, delivering approximately 400 rounds in sustained bursts over 30 seconds. The lead barge sustained critical damage, lost power, and began settling by the stern. PT-162 and PT-169 conducted follow-up attacks with torpedoes and conventional armament, ensuring both barges were destroyed. PT-174 returned to Rendova at 0430 hours with approximately 800 rounds expended from the nose installation. Post-combat inspection revealed the weapon system had performed flawlessly. No mechanical failures occurred. The mounting structure showed no signs of stress or damage. The combat effectiveness of PT-174's 6-gun installation was immediately recognized by Squadron Command. Between August 29th and October 15th, 1943, PT-174 conducted 18 additional combat patrols, engaging Japanese barges, coastal vessels, and shore installations. The boat destroyed or damaged 14 Japanese barges, 3 small coastal freighters, and numerous shore facilities. The 6-gun nose installation proved decisively superior to conventional PT boat armament against armored targets. However, the modification also revealed significant limitations and vulnerabilities. The P-40 nose section, constructed of lightweight aluminum and positioned prominently on the bow, was vulnerable to any incoming fire. On September 23, 1943, PT-174 took 20mm cannon fire from a Japanese shore battery during a close-in engagement. 3 rounds struck the P-40 nose section, causing significant damage to the wing structure and destroying 2 of the 6 guns. The boat withdrew and required 5 days of repairs. The elevated cockpit frame structure, while providing an excellent observation position, created wind resistance that reduced speed and increased fuel consumption. The modification reduced PT-174's operational radius by approximately 15% compared to standard PT boats. This limitation was acceptable for short-range patrol operations, but would have been problematic for longer missions. The maintenance burden was substantial. The aluminum P-40 structure corroded rapidly in the saltwater environment. The wing skin developed extensive pitting and required frequent cleaning and treatment. The gun barrels required meticulous maintenance to prevent corrosion. The ammunition feed mechanisms required constant attention to ensure reliable operation. The modification consumed significantly more maintenance time than conventional PT boat armament. On October 18, 1943, Motor Torpedo Boat Squadron 10 Headquarters issued an assessment of PT-174's P-40 nose installation. The report documented the remarkable combat effectiveness. The boat had achieved a higher kill rate against Japanese barges than any other boat in the squadron. However, the assessment also noted the vulnerability to damage, increased maintenance requirements, and reduced operational radius. The assessment concluded that the modification was tactically effective but operationally challenging. The report recommended that the installation remain on PT-174 as an experimental system, but suggested that future installations should use purpose-built gun mounts rather than salvaged aircraft structures. The P-40 nose section had proved the value of concentrated forward firepower, but the long-term solution would require engineered installations rather than field expedients. PT-174 continued combat operations through December 1943 with the P-40 nose installation. The boat participated in the invasions of Treasury Islands and Bougainville, providing fire support during landings and engaging Japanese coastal forces. On December 8, 1943, PT-174 was severely damaged during a daylight air attack by Japanese dive bombers. 2 bombs struck near the boat, causing extensive hull damage. The vessel was towed to Tulagi and declared a constructive total loss.